Welcome to Right Talk with Mike Lee. I'm really looking forward to this evening's show. I'm looking forward to learning myself. I have my guest this evening is Josh Salinas. He's someone, and I have to give Brian Mays credit for meeting this man. I met Josh a couple of weeks ago over at Sam's Barbecue. The favorite conservative hangout on the east side with,
Yes,
the,
sir.
with the best barbecue in Austin.
Yes, sir. Don't need no teeth.
Don't need no teeth, eat that.
Don't need no teeth. I mean, it's delicious too.
Ms. Salinas, when we met, we just chit-chatted briefly. Tell me a little bit about your background. Share that with my audience, please.
Well, we met because I had met you a couple of times there with Brian and the guys, and then when I came back, they said Brian was doing a show. I said, well, put it on. I want to see them. And then that's the first time I had seen your show. It was one of the times Brian was on, and then I realized that how impactful you were to our East Austin community. And ever since then, I just said thank you for the difference you're making in our community, in our families, in our kids. So I just really thought that was an awesome project you're doing with this Right Talk, and so thank you for that.
So what I try to do is try to be helpful and informative to the community, because my concern is for the community. It took me a couple of months to think of the right name for the show that I was comfortable with. And so I thought about Right Talk. Right Talk should lead to right thinking. And right thinking should lead to right action. And if you engage in right action, you end up doing the right thing, which I think is what life is supposed to be about.
Yes, sir.
To me.
Yes, sir.
I could be wrong. I doubt it, but
But
on that point, I think I'm right, though.
it's biblical, so yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
That's Right Talk.
Oh, it is.
That's very Right Talk. It's in a
Okay.
good word.
Okay, so tell you're engaged in the construction business.
Yes, I'm
You
actually.
have been for a long time.
My dad moved here from South Texas. Our family's originally from South Texas, so he migrated up here and followed my uncle, who had been here, I guess, since the late '50s, and from a migrant family background. So we've always been slightly, just doing the migratory work for half the year, and the other part they do construction. So he moves up here, meets my mom, and then. So I've actually been here since, my dad's been here since '61. I was born in '65, and off Montopolis on Thrasher Lane, and was there, went to Allison, and still have family there as well, and just been doing that. My mom and dad divorced in the mid to late '70s. Went and lived in Lubbock for a while. That was a challenging time, to say the least.
Now you shared something with me just before the show that I would like to. I just want to ask you about it. I think the audience should know. You're actually kind of like an accident, right? So to speak.
Well, I guess if in what most folk would call an accident, in that my
You're a miracle.
my mom and dad didn't plan me,
They say a miracle.
and yeah, my mom was a teenager at the time, and she really didn't want to have me, and so her and my dad went back and forth, and she actually tried to abort me a few times. So whenever I go in that realm, that discussion, which is the rights of life, and for the lives that nobody that can't speak for themselves, you just, I take it personal, and I get passionate about it only because.
Of your experience?
I'm actually an abortion that lived.
Okay.
And I've had sons and grandsons that the enemy, if you will, tried to abort as well, and then luckily we had the victory on that as well. So that's why.
What are some of the projects you're working on? If you could say.
One of the things that we do, and I'm just gonna. Is since we've been involved in the East Austin community for decades, one of the things that's taking place is the gentrification. So as East Austin is being gentrified, a lot of the minority communities see that as a negative. And what I try to instill in them and educate them with is, look, gentrification is a positive in that the homes that are there, they're an asset that can be, if done right, you can use it to cash flow. So what I do is I help families. It's called an analysis. So we do a highest and best use of their property, do an analysis, and show them how to cash flow their house. That even if they're paying taxes on it, show them how to do cost-saving measures on the taxes that they're paying on those houses that they don't even realize, and they can recoup as well. So, that's mainly our main thrust, is showing East Austin families, and we try to, and we show them how to do that with existing structures, or putting a smaller structure in the back to help family members so they don't lose the property, because they're having a hard time paying the taxes on it. and they don't know how to remodel. They don't really, I mean, they do what they do, and they're good at, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know.
So you try to develop something positive out of something that could be viewed as a negative situation.
Well, it's positive in the fact that there's a lot of, Austin is one of the hottest markets in the U.S. There's trillions of dollars that are being brought in back to the U.S. So there's a lot of commerce, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of synergy that's going on. And what I found, like we discussed earlier, is our minorities are being held back because of a dislike for the current administration, a hatred towards the current administration. And so they focus on the negative when they could be focusing on the positive that they have, if that made sense.
Well, you know, it seems to me that rather than focus on what you don't like from an emotional perspective, now politically, in a sense, I feel that many African Americans, they want to be liked. And me personally, I don't really care whether you like me or not. I do mind whether or not you respect me and treat me as an equal.
Exactly.
But I have to treat myself as an equal before I should expect you to treat me as an equal.
Exactly.
I've got to be real with myself.
Yes.
Now, when we met, we were talking I think you saw the show where I showed a couple of videos, right? And you have since returned the favor and turned me on to a couple of videos. I'd sure like to see one of those videos right now.
Yes.
Now, I haven't seen this yet. You sent it to me, but I wasn't able to, you know, with my technological limitations,
Brace
I wasn't able to see
yourself.
it yet. I'd just like to see it.
Yes.
And then we can talk about that. We can get back to this issues of gentrification and whatnot.
Yeah, well, the first one we're going to show is just kind of some of the opportunities that lay ahead for us as minorities, and how we can better take advantage and not be blinded or dissuade or wrongly influenced on how to fulfill purpose, destiny, and calling that we each have on our lives and on our families.
We don't have to be thrown off track by what's happening.
Exactly.
We can take advantage of what's happening.
Just go with it
Looking at what you're saying.
in a positive manner. And then it doesn't matter who's in
And
office. It doesn't matter who.
Let go of the hate and just go ahead and try to make money.
Don't hate, appreciate, congratulate, emulate.
If we can get up to that video, that would be, then we can come back.
Yes, sir.
Prominent voice in the movie Hillary's America, professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt, and you brought such an amazing voice to this film. Talk to me a little bit about it, because my mind is still quite blown, but I know that yours was as well at that moment, you know, being a Democrat and then sort of learning a little bit about the sordid history of the Democrat Party. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I've known the history of the Democratic Party a long time because my specialty is American politics. When I got the opportunity to appear in the film, I saw it as an opportunity to maybe reach a wider audience with the true history of the party. Now, I knew the history of the Democratic Party, but I stayed in the party up until the early 2000s, and then I moved to becoming an independent, and in 2009 I became a Republican. And I believe that the Democratic Party is not the party, it's clearly not the party that a lot of African Americans believe it is, and I'm hoping that this movie will reach a much wider audience and that they will begin to see, especially African Americans, that they don't have to stay in the Democratic Party and that there is a party that offers hope and a way out of the misery that so many people suffer.
And so you can offer some historical accuracy. I mean, what would you say is the key thing that you want to talk to these young people out there? I mean, we see right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, and these people are really activated, very politically active in their communities, but I feel as though they might be being kind of led in a certain way, but maybe they don't have the whole history. What would you say are some of the key points that they need to understand about what they're supporting?
Well, there's so much that they don't understand, and if they are college students, then they need to read about Marxism. Maybe they'll read about it and they'll like it, but they need to know that it's pure Marxism and they should go from learning about Marxism to studying the impact that it's had on the rest of the world. I think that a lot of African Americans are being deceived. They want a better life, they want a better world. They're being used, and if they truly believe that Black lives matter, they would be concerned about the abortion rate in the black community. In cities like New York, more black babies are being aborted than are being born. If they truly cared about black lives, they really would be concerned about the high black on black murder rate.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I mean, we've talked about this a lot at InfoWars, but one of the things that I thought was just really spelled out very well in this film was the KKK being the military arm of the Democratic Party. And I don't think a lot of people understand that, and to how they could overnight switch from lynching people to then all of a sudden being your savior. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, the thing about it, people would say, well, the KKK, that was a long time ago, and I would agree that that was a long time ago, but I believe that many of the programs that the Democratic Party pushes enslaves blacks, and when they bring in more and more immigrants, that decreases opportunities for low-wage, low-skilled Americans of all races. So the policies of the Democratic Party are not policies that are going to enable many poor people to overcome their plight. I believe in the American dream. It's been a reality for me. I believe it can be a reality for millions of other people. And if young people want to change America, then I think that they need to equip themselves with some historical knowledge. I also believe that a part of the problem for many Americans, and again, I'm going to keep going back to black people because I'm black, is that we put our faith in government now. There was a time when we put our faith in God, but now it's government, and that's a mistake.
And one last question. So, what we're hearing a lot now, and I don't know if this is coming out of the schools or whatever, but I hear a lot of young black people, minorities, saying that the Constitution is not for them. And yes, of course, when it was written, it wasn't, the world was not perfect. Talk to people a little bit about the Constitution. Who was it written for?
Well, the Constitution in many ways was written in a timeless manner. The framers knew that slavery was wrong. In fact, you don't find the word slave or slavery mentioned in the Constitution. Everyone knew that it would be eventually abolished. I think that when we look at our Constitution, we have to look at our freedoms. There's a reason why people are willing to risk their lives to come to America. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of association, all of those things that we take for granted. Our Bill of Rights, that's something that we should cherish. No other country in the world has come up with anything better.
Absolutely. Carol, thank you so much. Everybody out there needs to go and see this movie. She is going to blow your mind with facts, and that's how we're going to win this war.
I want to thank you first, Josh, for turning me on to that particular clip. Sounds a lot like me. And I find it interesting because she's a political science professor and law professor at Vanderbilt. I have a good friend who I went to college with, Richard Lincoln, who's an appeals court judge up there. And he and I, we get into it on Facebook sometimes. And a couple of months ago, I asked him, he cut his teeth in civil rights just like I did as young lawyers. And I asked him he said he's fought for equality for 40 years. I asked him 6 months ago, what's equality? And 6 months later, he reads to me a Hornbook definition. And he's taught civil rights at Vanderbilt Law School. And I'm thinking, like, after 40 years, this the best you got is a Hornbook definition? You should be able to tell me what equality is right off the bat.
Yep.
Because I told him, I say philosophically and realistically, it doesn't exist. Nowhere. I can't go down and dunk like LeBron. I wish I could and get that money. But I can't. We're all gifted, differently gifted and talented. And to me, what the Constitution allows is designed to allow me to take full advantage and get the full benefit of whatever my special qualities are.
Exactly.
Without regard to what yours are.
Exactly.
Mine aren't equal to yours.
Well, we're all...
We're different.
Yep. We're all different. And that was by design. That was by design. You have gifts and talents just like I do. Just like everyone out there listening to us, seeing us. Everybody's individually unique, individually was created for a purpose, a destiny, and a calling, and they themselves have to see, okay, well, how do I achieve that? How do I get there? And that's where we run into problems because It's not the system or the man that prevents that. It's we ourselves allow all the noise, all the influences, everything just to sidetrack us and get us distracted from what we need to be doing.
You know, the other thing that she mentioned about young college students thinking the Constitution isn't for them, wasn't designed for them. The fact of life and reality is history is written by the people in charge. I wouldn't expect, if I had to write history, I wouldn't write history of the west side of Austin, because that's not where I live. That's not part of my reality. I'm going to write according to what my reality is. And when I was in undergraduate school, I got in a dispute with a so-called liberal professor once about the 3/5 Amendment. Because I said, Dr. Kirby, if they didn't mean it, why didn't they just repeal the 3/5? But I had an incomplete understanding of what the 3/5 Amendment was. And what many people do, they don't really understand. It's actually an anti-slavery provision. Mm-hmm. Because the states in the South wanted to count slaves 1 to 1. That way they'd have more population. The compromise was, we'll count 5-3 as a way of trying to reduce power.
Yep.
There was a power compromise.
Struggle.
Right.
Kind of like what we have now.
Right.
Kind of like we have now, right?
So it's really I didn't realize when I was an undergrad, it was actually an anti-slavery position. I thought that you're saying I'm 3/5 as a man. No, that's not what it's saying. What it's saying is for purposes of enumeration, for purposes of calculating the population to determine representation, this is how we're going to count.
And that's, see, you had to dig a little bit deeper than surface level. You had to do your due diligence, and that's what this current generation of millennials is really lacking. Our generation is somewhat, but they take a Facebook clip, they take a little news bite, and they take that as gospel without doing their due diligence and actually seeing what's factual and what's non-factual and what's spinned and what's not spinned. And that's what they're having a hard time.
Well, I'm going to say
dealing
what's
with.
real. Because what I looked at was 3/5. I looked at the number without understanding all the nuances behind that number. And what happens now is, sadly, and I think Facebook proves this, most people are damn near illiterate. For real. They can't conjugate a verb. They don't know there, and there.
That's by design
It's
as
a
well.
bunch of things. It's a bunch of things.
Well, if you look at some of the writings from some of our, just look at any writing, go to a library, research it on Facebook, research it on Google it, and look at letters that were written in the early 1900s, late 1800s, whatever, and look at their sentence structuring. Look at the words they're using. Look at how they're articulating themselves. Look at what these are kids. And when you compare it to our generation, compare it to this generation, and what's happening since the TEA is one of the is the strongest lobbyist in DC and one of the strongest lobbyists in Texas, they have a lot of say-so. So what they want is they want more power. And that manifests itself in the product of the students being less educated.
So it's no accident.
It's by design.
It's by design. My baby brother has a PhD in adult education and philosophy. He says the same thing, but he's a liberal somehow, and a veteran. He's lost his mind, but he'll be all right.
Well, see, what happens is there's a proverbial saying that the truth is always going to set you free. See, but what we have nowadays is people are having a hard time discerning truth from fiction, real news from fake news, and that's where...
Well, one of the things that's happened is this relativism. Mm-hmm. The idea that, and I had a guest on, Dale Fowler, he mentioned something last week. I wanted to take him on it, but I didn't have time. He said something about people tell their truth. It's as though people can have their own truth.
No.
And if everyone can have their own truth, then there's no the truth. And there is such a thing as something is true.
Yes.
Something that happens is a fact. It's a truth.
Well, if you look at generationally speaking, because if we don't historically look at where we come from, not to dwell on it, but to say, okay, what do we glean from it? What do we learn from it? How do we grow from that? How do we take it to, fulfilling the purpose that we have to fulfill? You're bound to repeat it. And if you look at it from a historical perspective, that's what gets people in trouble, because they don't want to. First of all, it's history, so they shut their minds to it. And how do you get past that?
Well, what I believe happens a lot, and I think we see this all too frequently, is that a person's thinking or reasoning gets hijacked by their emotions.
Yep.
And so rather than trying to think something and reason something through, they go with their feelings. Or they get angry, they don't listen. And I think about simple things like when someone gets angry, say, I lost my head, I lost my temper. And that's it. Okay, I take your face value. I lost my temper, which means if you lose your temper, that means that you weren't thinking. That's really what that's saying.
Yes, sir.
And I have said, and I have baited friends and loved ones and relatives and everybody on Facebook. I say I can disconnect the thinking of most African Americans by saying Republican and by saying the word Trump.
It short circuits everything.
It cuts everything off.
Yeah. It's called a trigger. It's called a trigger.
Now, what as a conservative myself, what I find disconcerting is the fact that my conservative brethren of all colors and races is they've allowed themselves to be demonized and haven't said a daggone word. And so we're not giving other people a choice. We're failing to communicate or even say anything. And that's a failure on the part of conservatives, I believe. And one of the reasons I was really anxious about doing this show was to try to bring a different perspective. And I tried to bring a different perspective to the east side of Austin.
Yes, sir.
As a matter of fact, I'm sure you know Richard Franklin. Everybody knows Richard just about. Richard is one of the best friends I have here. And most of the good people I've met in Austin, I've met them through Richard. But Richard says to me, he has a meeting, what I call a meeting of the political elders on Wednesdays at Mimadre. You been out there? Mm-hmm. You been there? Okay, I go to that meeting from time to time.
No, I've been to Mimadres, not the meeting.
Okay. When I go to the meeting, when I go to Richard's, I call it the Richard meeting.
Okay.
That's what I tell my wife. And I say I'm going to Richard's meeting this Wednesday or something like that, right? One meeting I went in, Richard said, "Hey Lee, how you doing?" He said, "Boy, I'm glad you're in town." He said, "People have somebody to hate besides me." But that's how it is. But as I said, he's a good guy, and when he ran for office, I was at the Victory Grill, to support his announcement and all that. He knows where I am politically, and I know where he is politically. I know he's wrong. And if I was at his meeting, he'd probably dad to get a fight, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
But we both have the interests of the community at heart. And I know Richard's he's a good guy. And he's sincere about what he does. He sincerely cares about Austin, all of it. Otherwise, if he didn't care about all of it, he wouldn't have anything to do with me.
Yep.
But he and I get along fine. He's been on my show. Hope to get him back again soon, because I want to discuss some things about Austin. He's peculiarly situated to be able to talk about it, as are you. Now, getting back to this gentrification thing, why is it happening in your perspective, in your opinion?
Well, it's actually been happening for quite some time, because I've seen the values go up, and I found it odd. I just thought, that 35 was the line of demarcation for 78701, 78702, 78723, 78724, and I found it odd all the time, and how the properties were. And then all of a sudden, gentrification comes along, and it came on our radar many years ago, so we started figuring out ways to become a solution to help people, as opposed to, well, I hate the man, or I hate this, or I hate that, or I don't agree with this. I don't have to agree with everything. But how do we collectively find a solution that helps people that can't otherwise, that are going to get in trouble? One of the things that we do is we help people with, there's a lot of properties that they're in probate, or the heirs have died, and so you have investors, the city, everyone's trying to get at the property because it has value, and nobody's there to help the family.
You have a land mess because of a will here, no will there, children dying.
And
things like
that's
that.
one thing that, why aren't we doing asset protection? Why aren't we setting up wills? Why don't we have things in place for our kids, our grandkids? And it all goes to, I did a whiteboard study this past weekend, and it was from a gentleman that works for a multi-billion-dollar company. There was another gentleman that was there at the meeting who used to work for Home Depot, another multi-billion-dollar company, and then just was reaffirmed today as on how these companies approach problem solving, how they approach opportunities. See, so they don't get emotional about it. It doesn't, there's no need to get emotional. We got a problem, identify it. How do we fix it? So we've got identification, problem, or opportunity. How do we get ahead of it? How do we, instead of swimming against it, how do we maximize the opportunity that we have to help each other? And there's all kinds of opportunities.
And we had talked about, you gave me a worksheet about the 5 whys.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
First question, why is it happening?
Because of the proximity to downtown. See, what happened was, back in our generation, the city, especially the downtown area, people were leaving. They were going to the suburbs, and they were abandoning all those houses, and that's why they became targets for all kinds of illicit activities, nefarious activities, just whatever. And so the people that inherently had those properties, they didn't keep up with them. So they became distressed properties, they became abandoned properties, they became whatever. But eventually, as the cycle past the 80s, when the yuppies, they said, look, we work downtown and we need to be closer to downtown. What's wrong with this house right here on 2nd Street? Oh, well, it's got too much crime. So they started coming into these areas and buying the properties and bringing up the value, which was good. And so the why was the yuppies that came in the early mid-90s started saying, hey, we need to.
They want to be closer to work.
Closer to work. So they're the one, that was the catalyst that started the gentrification movement, if you will. But look what it's done. It's made people independently wealthy who wouldn't otherwise been independently wealthy.
I know someone I met here told me that Hollywood Henderson, who used to play with the Dallas Cowboys, he had bought a piece of property right off this, not too far from 35, for almost nothing back in the day. And he sold it for like maybe a couple of million or something in the last few years.
Hollywood Henderson's a very, very good example of an astute real estate investor. When it comes to real estate investing, developing, you have the majority are what are called flippers. They'll take a piece of property, they'll acquire it, remodel it, flip it. He also has, so he flips, but he also has 20, 30 properties that he holds. So the majority's flips, some of them are holds. Holds just means you're cash flowing the property. So you have a mortgage on it for $500, $1,000, but you're cash flowing it for $3,000. So you're renting it for $3,000. So you're cash flowing $2,000 a month. You multiply that 10 times, and you've got properties that are cash flowing $20,000. So there's a lot of ways to get into the real estate, but the thing is you have to be Mentored, number one, that's another thing that comes up a lot with these whiteboard sessions is who are you mentoring? Who are you letting get close to you? The 5 people closest to you are who you are. They make up who you are. So if they're positive and they're trying to better themselves and improve their lot in life and achieve their goals, their dreams, their aspirations, as they go towards their vision, the good word says, where there's no vision, people perish. A vision is 100 years. So that means it's multi-generational. What's your vision? As you're achieving that vision, what are your goals to get there? Most people don't know.
The steps on the way to making
Exactly.
the steps on the way to making the vision real.
Because the struggle is real.
Oh yeah.
But it's the journey getting there that's gonna. I met and see, if you do enough right things, enough times, positive things, good things are gonna happen to you. It's the law of sowing and reaping. You reap what you sow. If you sow good, you plant. That's your garden. That's your garden. So what people don't realize is, I lied, cheated, stole, did this, did that. Well, that's what you're sowing. That's what you're going to reap. You're going to sit at a table and you're going to eat of that. So why not do good? Why not be good? Why not act good? Why not do good by the community? Do good by your neighbors. Do good by your family. Do good by your friends.
Again, I want to thank you for that video. I learned that there's someone else up in Vanderbilt University. And next time I communicate with Dink, I'm gonna let him know about that and let him know.
Well, the next one, I got one from Harvard.
You got one from Harvard?
From Harvard.
I'd like to see that one.
You want to see some? Okay.
From Harvard?
Harvard. There we go.
My name is Donovan Livingston, and I came to address you in the best way I know how, but you have to forgive me. I have to take this moment in for a little while. When I spoke at my high school graduation several years ago, my high school English teacher threatened to replace me on the program or cut my microphone when she found out that I was interested in doing a poem as a part of my remarks. So I am eternally grateful for being able to share this piece of myself in my most authentic voice with you this afternoon. So, spoken word poetry. It insists on participation, so if you feel so compelled, snap, clap, throw up your hands, rejoice, celebrate. Class of 2016, this is your address, and this is your day. Education, then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is a great equalizer of the conditions of men. Horace Mann, 1848. At the time of his remarks, I couldn't read, I couldn't write. Any attempt to do so, punishable by death. For generations, we have known of knowledge's infinite power, yet somehow we have never questioned the keeper of the keys, the guardians of information. Unfortunately, I've seen more dividing and conquering in this order of operations, a heinous miscalculation of reality. For some, the only difference between a classroom and a plantation is time. How many times must we be made to feel like quotas, like tokens and coined phrases, diversity, inclusion? There are days I feel like one, like only, a lonely blossom in a briar patch of broken promises, but hey, I've always been a thorn in the side of injustice, disruptive, talkative, a distraction with a passion that transcends the confines of my own consciousness, beyond your curriculum, beyond your standards. I stand here, a manifestation of love and pain with veins pumping revolution. I am the strange fruit that grew too ripe for the poplar tree. I am a dream act, dream deferred, incarnate, and a movement, an amalgam of memories America would care to forget. My past alone won't allow me to sit still, so my body, like my mind, cannot be contained. As educators, rather than raising your voices over the rustling of our chains, take them off, uncuff us, unencumbered by the lumbering weight of poverty and privilege, policy and ignorance. I was in the 7th grade when Ms. Parker told me, Donovan, we could put all of your excess energy to good use. And she introduced me to the sound of my own voice. She gave me a stage, a platform. She told me that our stories are the ladders that make it easier for us to touch the stars. So climb and grab them. Keep climbing. Grab them, spill your emotions in the Big Dipper and pour out your soul. Light up the world with your luminous allure. To educate requires Galileo-like patience. Today, when I look my students in the eyes, all I see are constellations. If you take the time to connect the dots, you can plot the true shape of their genius shining in their darkest hour. I look each of my students in the eyes and see the same light that aligned Orion's belt in the pyramids of Giza. I see the same twinkle that guided Harriet to freedom. I see them. Beneath their mask and their mischief exists an authentic frustration and enslavement to your standardized assessments. At the core, none of us were meant to be common. We were born to be comets, darting across space and time, leaving our mark as we crash into everything. A crater is a reminder that something amazing happened right here, an indelible impact that shook up the world. Are we not astronomers searching for the next shooting star? I teach in hopes of turning content into rocket ships, tribulations into telescopes, so a child can see their true potential from right where they stand. And injustice is telling them they are stars without acknowledging the night that surrounds them. Injustice is telling them education is the key while you continue to change the locks. Education is no equalizer. Rather, it is the sleep that precedes the American dream. So wake up, lift your voices until you've patched every hole in a child's broken sky. Wake up, every child, so they know of their celestial potential. I've been the black hole in a classroom for far too long, absorbing everything without allowing my light to escape, but those days are done. I belong among the stars, and so do you. And so do they. Together, we can inspire galaxies of greatness for generations to come. So no, sky is not the limit. It is only the beginning. Lift off.
It's nice to hear something like that. It's very, I wouldn't say neutral, it's just real.
Well, see, what really caught me was how he's trying to wake his audience up, wake his students up, wake whoever he was speaking to up to the untapped potential. And that's kind of my purpose is, look, there's potential. I was a abortion that lived. I was homeless when my mom and dad divorced. I was homeless, living from house to house to house. I did not let that define me. I didn't let the fact that I was aborted, nothing. What defines me is the legacy that I'm going to leave for my kids and my grandkids, my great-grandkids. That's what defines me.
I can't think of that song from the 70s that says, what you do. It's what you do. It's what you do with your time, what you do with your life, and the choices you make.
Exactly.
Not, and I think too often people get are too often influenced by where they are or what they had,
Or
without realizing anything is possible, for real.
Or they get bogged down on, see, the fabric of who we are is all our experiences, and then also where we come from. But I don't let I have American Indian in me. This land was taken from the American Indian. I have Tejano. I'm actually a son of the Republic of Texas. My grandmother was a third-generation Sephardic Jew from Spain. I don't dwell on that. I look to, okay, how can I take all that cumulative information, that DNA, if you will, how do I put it into a positive potential to a family, a couple, and help them to achieve what they need to achieve in whatever they're doing.
Well, I often like to challenge my African-American brothers and just simply ask the question, what good does it do to supposedly hate white people? What does that do? Has that hate increased your bank account? Has it put any food on the table?
Nothing.
Has it created anything positive?
Nothing.
Just to walk around
Nothing.
mad all the time?
Just mad at the system, mad at the man, mad at the cops, just in anger. Well, see, that's a negative fruit. Again, when you go back to the good word, it talks about the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, etc.
Well, if you dwell in the negatives, how in the world can you expect something positive to happen?
You can't. But that's not the expectation with certain individuals that do want that to happen. If you look at, well, why isn't there, you have that whole Second Amendment debate going on right now. I don't know if the producer had time to cue that up, but as you look at that issue, the Second Amendment, that is our constitutional right. Yet some folk would have you tell you that, no, well, we need to do this, and this, modify, take away, adjust. And what happens is when you look at guns, and that's not our number one killer. That's not our number one problem that we
The
have.
problem is the people.
Well,
Let's say these glasses are a gun. I'll bet you that those glasses can't get up and do anything.
No,
I bet you.
No, they're not. They won't. They'll be there till.
They'll be there until some person moves them. And the problem is not the glasses, it's the person who moves them.
Well, if you look at it, again, it is the people, but what about the people? What is wrong with the kids in this generation that are doing that? Do you realize when you grew up here in Texas, right?
No, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I grew
Okay.
up in a place called Lincoln Heights.
Let me help you out here. Here in Texas, we
Black
used to have
capital of the world.
pickups, a lot of pickups, and in
Well,
our
they had guns in the back.
exactly, we had a gun rack, and there were guns all day, every day, all over. Not once did some child think about going to a school and shooting up all their classmates. Not once. So why all of a sudden has it become an issue? Well, you look at, okay, what's changed in the past 30 years? What's changed is all the positive things that they took out of the schools. They took prayer out of schools. They took Ten Commandments out of schools. They took everything positive.
They took vocational education out of school.
They took voed. They took everything positive and they turned it into standardized tests, passing the test. And as a matter of fact, over in that Parkland, the government was paying the school district not to arrest kids. They were paying them not to harass kids. So they were getting paid by all that. So you're not. It's a symptom of what a problem is. How do you correct that problem? Well, it's the kids. It's the kids that are being bullied. It's the kids that are being ostracized. It's the kids that are being blackballed. It's the kids that they're having issues. Just work on those kids somehow, some way. And why are our schools not being protected? Why did almost 100 phone calls to the sheriff's department not get anything? Why didn't anything not happen to that family? Almost 100 phone calls. Prior to that shooting, nothing happened. So it's something that, it's beyond our control, but we can impact whatever we, in our communities, however we need to, in a positive manner.
Well, I think one of the things that's critical to look at is what was pointed out in the first video, where she said in the African American communities, there's been a slow drift to depend on government instead of God. And when she said that particular portion of the video, what came to my mind was, it concerns me that the church in the black community is not playing a more forceful and focused role to try to develop some positive things. Well, it seems to me that the church is really just like a Democratic second Tuesday in November feeding ground. I know ministers who said they worry about their tax exemption. And they worry about their tax exemption. They talk about separation of church and state, but it is a Democratic pickup point on election day. And some churches have been polling places.
Well, so is it really, are we doing the right thing, or are we are we voting on just by somebody's color of their skin, or how well they can articulate? To me, I have certain issues. I'm a veteran. So I'm already, how are you treating my military? I'm also, right to life. How are you treating the unborn? So how are you educationally, the government? Why do we need a big, swollen government? I'm for a smaller, so all these things matter. And So when you look at them, you know what? And you ask people, ask them on Facebook, ask them when you talk to them, why are you voting? Well, and they don't know. They don't have any idea. So they can't readily, just like I told you, there was a girl from Amsterdam, Holland, I talked to her last week at Brian's. Her name was Nas.
Was that the one that hadn't spoken to a conservative before or something like that?
Yes. She was shocked. She was of middle 20s, late 20s. And she said, I want to talk to you because I've never spoken to a Trump supporter. Right? And she was trying to articulate her point, but she soon realized that she didn't have enough information to be able to defend what she believed in.
What she said she believed in.
What she thought she believed in. She said, I feel so ignorant because I asked you to talk to me, but I don't even know what I believe in. She said, and yet you have, I can tell this isn't the first time you, I said, no, it's not. I believe what I believe.
I don't know if I told you how I met Brian. They had a Democratic, Cheryl Cole was announcing she had a press conference at Sam's Barbecue. And I'm probably one of the better known black Republicans in Austin. And me, Cheryl Cole's having an announcement over there. I said, let me go and see what's going over there.
Let me go investigate.
So I went over there. You know, of course, I had met her before and talked to her and all that stuff. And I went there, and then when as part of the outreach for the Republican Party in Travis County, I wanted to have some kind of event. And I thought, hell, why not have it there?
Yep.
And that's where we had it.
Good.
And had a good event, too. And I looked at it from that perspective. And I also looked at it from the perspective of we've got to, as conservatives, we've got to go where we ain't. Not where we already are, not where we like, not where we're popular. We have to go into the lion's den, so to speak.
Well, if you look at the worksheet, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
If you look at that, okay, well, why? If you keep doing the definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So why, as a minority community, whether it's Latino community, black community, yellow, green, red, whatever, you fill in the blank, if you're expecting different results, you need to do different things. So what exactly do you need to do different? That's why I gave you the worksheet. What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, it takes courage to do something different. Now my wife, who I refer to often on my program, because most African Americans just think they're supposed to be Democrat. I couldn't tell you how many times she would look at me like something was wrong with me.
Same thing.
You
Same
think
thing
you're a
here.
Republican? Yeah. And my granddaddy was. That's who taught me.
Yep.
My grandfather.
So what does that tell you?
And
What does that tell you? That we have to be passing that down as well.
my grandfather told me, essentially he told me, and he wasn't able to read and write. He essentially told me that Republicans played the game correctly. And when I was in high school, I started studying this liberal conservative stuff. And back in those days, in 1969 and 70, when I was in high school, a liberal was a person who was for change, and a conservative was a person who was for gradual change. A liberal was a jump off the cliff and look. A conservative was go look over the cliff first. And I was 17 then, I'm thinking, yeah, it makes more sense to look before you leave. Not leave and then say, oh, what am I gonna do? But now you say conservative now, you say Republican now, hey, racist. No,
Yep.
it's just a way of thinking.
Well, it is.
But that's part of the brainwashing.
Yep. Systematic.
And see, what's happened is, and I like to beat up on my conservative brothers about this because we let the liberals define us, demonize us,
Yep.
and didn't say a word. And so most African Americans, I dare say, they wouldn't admit it, they're afraid. Me, I'll go in a room full of Caucasians. I'm in the room. When I was in college, but something may be a little bit wrong with me. When I was in college, I was trying to figure out a way to go to a Ku Klux Klan meeting. Because I just wonder what they
You're just curious.
I was just wondering what they're doing.
Well,
I heard there was a cross burning about 10 miles from the college. I'm trying to figure out a way to get out there.
Well, Chappelle actually went to one.
That should have been fun. As long as you get out alive.
And well, Chappelle actually.
And if you don't get out alive, it doesn't matter anyway, you gone.
Well, I don't know. See, that's just being open-minded. That's just being curious, which is okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And then, like I told you earlier, I think there's several problems, and we have to address. Okay, how do we better the environment? You know, it's what are you putting in your mind? What are you reading? What are you listening to? Who are you hanging around? Mm-hmm. See, so you've been able. That was instilled from you generationally, because of. Look where he grew up. Look at the time that he grew up. See, he wasn't as politicized, and there was some truth to what he's telling you, and he instilled it in you. So that's all I'm saying is, why don't we do that as opposed to, hey, well, let's go listen to this whatever, and you know, so I think we have to make a concerted effort, as we're doing, as with.
It reminds me, I have to refer to my son on this one. My son called me about 3 weeks ago and sort of confessed to me that he was a conservative. He says, Dad, I think I'm a conservative, he says, because it's the only thing that makes sense if you think about what you're doing.
Exactly.
I said, okay.
Exactly.
Now my daughter, the brilliant one who you may have seen in my intro, she's a graduate of American University. She's non-committal, actually. But she'll come around because she'll start thinking at some point. She's smarter than me.
Really?
Yeah, she got her mama's brains.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And that's all you got to do. Is just, if you look at it objectively, what is the problem? How do you contribute in your way?
We just have to make a commitment to doing what's necessary to better the community. Period. Whatever that is. And to me, politically speaking, just to go vote and not fully participate
and not know why.
It's
It's okay to vote, but why are you voting? Why are you voting? Why are you voting for that candidate? What is that candidate going to do for you and your community, your family? How are they going to impact you? You know why I voted for Trump? Because I knew trillions of dollars were going to come into the community that I could take advantage of it to help East Austin, that I could help my family, that I could help my clients, or that I could help with. Where if you go with Hillary, it was going to be the exact opposite. Nothing. Overregulate, stifle, kill businesses, because that's what they were known for. I did have some more videos for us, and I do apologize we ran out of time.
Well, you're going to have to come back again.
Will do.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
We're going to have some fun. We're going to have to do it again on a different issue, maybe, or expand on this one.